Hey guys, what's going on? I'm back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Nightbooks. Nightbooks is a family horror fantasy film that tells the story of a young boy named Alex Mosher, a horror enthusiast who gives up his writing hobbies and leaves his apartment in a fit of rage when he suddenly finds himself trapped in another apartment that happens to belong to a witch. The witch named Natasha keeps Alex and another kid named Yasmin as slaves in her domain, and orders Alex to write and read aloud a brand new story to her every night, or else he and Yasmin will die. Having little in the way of options, Alex has no choice but to accept Natasha's demands as he quickly puts himself to work in writing all of these new stories while plotting a way to escape the apartment at the same time. So right off the bat, you know going into this movie that it's clearly oriented towards kids, since it doesn't have anything in the way of graphical violence or sex, things like that you might expect from a typical R-rated horror movie. Because of that, you might think that the story and characters for this movie would be dumbed down for kids to understand, but I actually found the story of this movie to be surprisingly mature, and the characters were quite deep as well. I think that Alex made for a great protagonist in this movie's story. Even though he's clearly obsessed with horror stories and pretty much anything to do with horror in general, you can tell just by looking at him that there's something deeper within him that's holding him back from truly expressing himself. And I think the way the movie explores his psyche and forces him to confront his demons as the story progresses was really well done. Yasmin, on the other hand, I thought was a bit more inconsistent as a character. She tended to flip-flop back and forth between being supportive and not supportive of Alex's quest to escape the apartment, but in general, I also thought that she was pretty good too. She has a great backstory with regards to the reasoning why she's in Natasha's apartment in the first place, and it does make you feel sorry for her as a character and want to root for her escape along with Alex. Krysten Ritter's role as Natasha the Witch, however, steals the show and is easily the best part of the movie, bar none. You can tell just by looking at her any time that she is on screen that she is having a ball with her performance. Everything about her character is a ton of fun. She never wears the same costume across two scenes. She has a variety of magic powers that she uses throughout the story, and to top it all off, she's always quick to praise and critique Alex, mostly critique, whenever he's reading his stories out loud. Every word that leaves her mouth in these scenes is hilarious. And as with Alex and Yasmin before her, Natasha is another character that has a great deal of depth and backstory behind her character, especially as the movie gets into how and why she became a witch in the first place. I'm not going to spoil that part in this video review, but the bottom line is that every character and their development in this movie is fantastic. The characters, however, are just the tip of the iceberg. When you get right down to it, this is a horror movie, and it does deliver on that promise. It's the perfect gateway horror movie for kids that's scary, but not too scary. There are a few jump scares thrown in to give you a cheap fright here and there, but there are also some more clever elements that are more suspenseful in nature that serve to really keep you on your toes as the story moves along. In this regard, the Nursery Garden is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. Alex has to go to this garden with Yasmin to help pluck all of these creature eggs that are attached to the wall, and he can't drop the eggs because if he does, the creature inside the egg will hatch and shred everything and everyone to shreds. The tension in that scene is awesome, and all the colorful plants and imagery in the background during that scene are icing on the cake. It also helps that this movie was produced by Sam Raimi, the director of the Evil Dead trilogy, and he was famous for featuring intense chase sequences in the Evil Dead movies, some of which are present in this one when Alex and Yasmin are on the run from Natasha. Even though he isn't necessarily the director, his signature camera work is all over this movie, and in my opinion, its suspense is better for it. Add in all of the sly references to various horror franchises over the years, and you end up with a horror movie that was clearly a passion project made by lovers of horror. It reminded me of a time when I was a kid watching Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and getting scared watching those shows, and I think it's a bit of a shame that we don't see more movies and shows like that anymore, because I think that there is an audience out there for every mainstream genre, both young and old. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot of complaints about this movie other than that, for me personally, it's not really all that scary, and that's not the movie's fault per se, because it's clearly oriented towards kids, and I'm used to watching way more morbid horror movies in comparison. I found some of the humor in this movie to be a bit much for my taste, and a lot of it seemed to revolve around Lenore, who's Natasha's Sphinx cat. I think some of the scenes where she's just playing pranks on Alex and Yasmin using her magic powers are okay, but at times it's a bit much, especially when there's a poop joke thrown in about halfway through the movie. I'm sorry, but gross out humor like that just isn't my thing. I do wish that the movie had explored further into the history of the kids that used to inhabit the apartment in the past, or at least the ones that were associated with Yasmin. The movie does talk about them a little bit, but I think that the movie added added a flashback sequence to go along with Yasmin's story as she's telling it, in the same way that the movie adds characters and sets to go along with Alex's stories as he's telling them, I think it would have added more dread to this movie's atmosphere. Overall, Nightbooks is an enjoyable horror movie. It's not the kind of horror movie that I personally prefer to watch, but I still had a good time watching it. If you have a family and you're looking for a fun horror movie to watch with your kids, especially one that doesn't have anything in the way of graphical imagery and isn't too scary, I think this movie is definitely right up your alley. I didn't find this movie to be particularly scary, but that's because I'm not its target audience. It succeeds at telling a horror story that's designed specifically for kids, and at the end of the day, I'm glad there are filmmakers out there who realize that there's a story for everyone, no matter the genre. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Nightbooks. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the French action thriller, The Stronghold. Bye bye!